My name is Joe Byrne. This is a piece of evidence recorded for Principles of Social Media Within a Business, Unit 301 for Social Media for a Business, Level 3. This is Learning Outcome 4. Social Media Policies in a Business. So, first of all, what components are there of a social media policy? What is it made up of? Well, I have some examples here. So first of all, appropriate use. This is a big one. This lets the employees know what is and what isn't appropriate use of social media at work. So they shouldn't be posting inappropriate pictures with sexual content, racist content, or anything like that. Online privacy. This usually outlines the privacy settings that members of staff should be using on social networking sites or other social media tools or channels. So this can prevent unwanted situations like online stalking. If somebody meets a customer and that customer might find them on Facebook and may create an unsafe situation for a member of staff. A complaints process is often outlined on a social media policy. It's usually used when a complaint's made about the business on social media. It basically outlines what a member of staff, what an employee needs to do when they notice that has happened. This is just because a negative comment about your business on social media can lead to a negative perception of your business all around. It could spark other negative comments. Then we have training requirements. This outlines what kind of training requirements are needed for staff members. Some businesses might have the staff go through some basic social media training, whereas others may desire a specific qualification, such as the one I'm doing, Level 3 Social Media for Business. Tone and manner. So this outlines the tone and the manner with which a business and its employees should represent themselves on social media. For example, at the National Careers Service, I need to convey messages and posts in an impartial manner. So I should never give my opinions about other organisations because as the National Careers Service we must remain impartial. Next we have behaviour in and out of work, which obviously outlines what behaviour is appropriate and what behaviour isn't appropriate, both in and out of work on social media. How an employee acts in the personal life can still affect their company, their business that they work for. This is because if that person is recognised as a key member of a local team or a local business, then somebody who's met them in their professional life might recognise them, and obviously their thoughts of that person would be that they represent that business, that company, that organisation. So for example, on my personal Facebook page, my employer likely doesn't want to see pictures of me getting drunk on a weekend to a point where I'm so bad that I'm being sick, for example, and there's pictures of that going on Facebook. My employer wouldn't want to see that. That wouldn't be appropriate use of social media now that I have the responsibility of representing a business. The next one, brand values. This is how a customer should see a business, or how they should feel when they interact with a business, which also applies when customers engage via social media. We want to give the same feeling, the same aesthetics on social media as we do when we see a customer in person. And finally, crisis management. This outlines what should be done in case of a crisis on social media. For example, if somebody's social media account is hacked, if there's a security breach and somebody's using that to post inappropriate pictures, members of staff need to know what to do in that kind of situation. So now that we know what is in a social media policy, why is it important? Well, if it wasn't clear with each of those examples, a policy gives the employees of a business a set of rules to deal with certain types of situations, or at least guidelines. Every member of a business needs to deal with situations in the same or a similar way to best represent their business. The policies are often put together by a designated person. They'll need to be approved by the director of a business, or sometimes other people such as team managers, people responsible for a certain area such as HR or social media. And specifically, a social media policy is tremendously important for any business using social media, as it allows the employees of a business to understand what their responsibilities are when it comes to the use of social media for their business. The policy is there to prevent things from happening rather than the business having to deal with things when they happen. It could prevent accidental copyright. It could prevent inappropriate posting of content, as different people's opinions on what is appropriate and what isn't may differ. So a business can outline that for their employees so that they don't post something that they thought was funny, whereas in actual fact many people may have been offended by it. It also empowers employees and gives them the confidence to act on their own in most situations, unless obviously the policy specifically says otherwise, unless it says that you need to contact this person to let them know that this is happening. But it does give employees the guidelines so that they can act on their own initiative when appropriate. A social media policy is really important for a business, as it can also reduce legal risk to that business. If the policy clearly says do not do something and an employee does it anyway, that individual employee would be responsible. They probably would be liable as opposed to the business if anything went wrong. Which brings us on to our next point, the importance of reputation management, and why you would have a policy for that. So reputation management is the act of shaping the perception of a business by influencing the information about that entity. In other words, it's doing all that's possible to make sure your business has a good reputation online. Any other business that has regular customers or that has interacted with a lot of customers is likely to have some form of reputation. Individuals like to let their opinions be known, and they'll do just that after they've had a good or bad experience with a business, particularly if it is a rather good or rather bad experience. They may feel compelled to let others know. Now, having a reputation management policy means that a business is making efforts to do just that, manage the reputation basically. It is hugely important as it enables a business to prevent attaining a bad reputation for themselves as opposed to battling a bad reputation. So just like I mentioned earlier with the social media policy, it allows the business to prevent things from happening rather than having to deal with those things after they've happened. Once a business has a bad reputation, it can be extremely hard for them to clear the names. So some examples of this include McDonald's is probably a really good example. They never seem to be able to get away from these suspicions that they use faulty meat, weird parts of animals, unhealthy ingredients, like artificially grown potatoes, that kind of thing. And they've tried to correct this. They've tried to correct these perceptions by making adverts. If you've seen the new McDonald's adverts, they make a point of saying, actually, we grow these ingredients on farms, we use free-range chickens, that kind of thing. Another good example is the BP. They had a huge oil spill that damaged both the environment and the wildlife around it. The BP's CEO, in fact, stood down in disgrace due to the terrible reputation they'd made for themselves. They do, however, continue to fix the problems that they caused in the area, to the wildlife, to the environment. So this is good because they didn't just make the one-off payment to repair the damages. They are working to repair the damages, which could potentially lead to their reputation becoming slightly more improved. And finally, another one, Frankie and Benny's. Especially in my local area, this company has a reputation for selling overpriced food and having a subpar service. It takes a long time for food to come, for drinks to come. I hear complaints about Frankie and Benny's all the time. Now, these three companies, you could argue that these businesses are far too large to be able to perfectly manage their reputations. And these companies likely did have some kind of reputation manager. They probably did have a reputation management policy. However, they are very big companies, and probably the only company out of the three that could benefit from a reputation management policy, if they don't have one at the moment, is Frankie and Benny's, because they haven't made the mistake that BP made. I don't think there was any way that a reputation management policy could stop the bad reputation happening to the BP after a huge oil spill that happened like it did. And in this instance, if you're not able to prevent a bad reputation, how do you change the perception of your business? How do we manage perception changes? So a few good examples of how this could be done is, first of all, you could add to the positive information that's being said and conveyed about your business. So for example, customer and critics' opinions are really key to the reputation of a business. So a business could do things such as publicise case studies of happy customers, or maybe they could post customer compliments on social media, just to add more positivity about their business. Another way, just to prevent any bad perception, is to maintain accurate information on websites, social media pages, other forms of media that a business controls. They should really be able to have 100% correct information so that customers don't get the wrong information, because they might become angry about that. A business should also keep an eye on online reviews. If a business gets a bad review, they should make appropriate changes to their business to prevent more bad reviews piling up. It's better to have one bad review and fix what they said is bad than to have hundreds of bad reviews because you've made the same mistake multiple times. And finally, a business should really build up a strong customer base. Having a happy and loyal, regular base of customers means that they can vouch for your business and prevent a bad reputation.